We've been listening to Nathan Wade going over receipts there on the stand about some of the travel with Fani Willis, who has admitted to having a relationship with him. Of course, at the crux of all of this was some of the money that he was paid as the prosecutor she hired, taxpayer money for this case that, of course, involves Donald Trump. Let's bring in our legal experts to weigh in on what we've heard so far. Alan Dershowitz, Professor Emeritus at Harvard Law School, also the author of Get Trump. Professor Dershowitz, pleasure to have you in. So Nathan Wade, I won't say he's a hostile witness, but clearly he is slow walking some of the questions Ashley Merchant is deliberately trying to get him on the record for. What do you make of the line of questioning by her and the witness's answer when it comes to just simple answers about receipts? They're talking about trips to Tennessee, Alabama, Aruba with his boss and now lover, D.A. Willis.
I think there's already enough in the record of the case to conclude that both Willis and he must remove themselves, recuse themselves from the case. I don't think the prosecution can go forward based on the record of this case with the two of them in charge. I think the remaining issue, and it's a very important one, and I think it's the one that the court is trying to stay away from but can't, is whether or not the two of them committed perjury, whether or not Willis herself made a false representation to the court about the time the relationship began, and whether or not he, who filed a written affidavit under penalties of perjury, committed perjury. It's not easy to know when a relationship began. And, this is not one of those one enchanted evening where at one night they met and that was the beginning and the end of the relationship. This was a developing friendship over the years,
yes,
as he did explain. And I don't think anybody wants to really focus on the exact moment when sex occurred. But that is really what determines the difference between a perjury and innocent testimony.
And I do want to get to some movement in Trump's case because he is in the New York courtroom, but I want to stay with this for 1 minute. So if it is determined that there was perjury, would it go beyond then just her being, as Judge McAfee said, disqualified then? Could there actually be a legal charge against her, be it with a bar complaint, or would it be something, could she face a criminal charge, Professor Dershowitz, for her conduct here?
If she, in fact, misled the court and if she conspired with him to commit perjury, there should be criminal prosecution or disbarment proceedings. And I think what you need now here is an independent counsel, a special counsel, say appointed by the Attorney General of the state of Georgia, to look into this and determine whether there's enough here for a criminal prosecution or a legal ethics possible disbarment. I think you can't just sweep this under the rug. You have a witness, and she was, I thought, fairly credible, saying that, I was her friend, and she admitted to me that she had a romantic relationship,
yes,
going well before she said. So one of them is not telling the truth, and the question is there enough there? Remember, she was fired from her job, the witness, or told to resign from her job. Is there enough there? Is there going to be more corroboration? That's the question.
The larger question then goes, if there is a disqualification and she faces her own legal issues, does a new prosecutor come in and pick up this RICO case? Obviously, this is, a huge case against a former sitting president. And is it worth the spend? I mean, Georgia taxpayers had a special grand jury under Fani Willis. Then they had a regular grand jury. I mean, this has been going on, and many say it's just a witch hunt. And that is, I think, a bigger question when we look at former President Donald Trump. Could this RICO case be unraveling as we know it, sir?
It's possible, but they could assign it to a different DA's office or to the Attorney General's office, and they could continue where they left off. There's also another prosecutor, special prosecutor, who was paid less, even though he was much more qualified, and he could take over the case. So I don't think this necessarily marks the end of the case. I think it necessarily marks the end of Fani Willis's career, and her, and perhaps his as well, but certainly hers.
And maybe their relationship. Complicated indeed. Let's talk about a date that has been set, March 25th. This is the Bragg case in New York. Stormy Daniels, the payments that were made. Alvin Bragg was the first, as you know, to come forward ever to indict a former president. Very many legal scholars, I believe even you said this, Novel theory, untested, weak indictment. But here we are this morning. Trump is in a New York courtroom and a judge decided not to dismiss the case, so it goes forward. What do you make of the March 25th deadline? We also know that is after March 5th, Professor, which is Super Tuesday. He is the leading GOP candidate. Is there some type of curiosity here that you have with the timing of all of this?
Well, I think the timing is routine. I think the case itself is not routine. In 60 years of practicing and teaching criminal law, I have never seen a weaker, more contrived, made-up case. Under the theory of this case, Alexander Hamilton would have been prosecuted for not publicly disclosing his affair that he had while Secretary of the Treasury. He ultimately disclosed it in the beginning. He disclosed it. You know, when you make deals with people and sign these kinds of agreements, it's implicit that you're not going to disclose it publicly. So there's never been a case in the history of this country where somebody has been prosecuted for this kind of crime. It's a made-up crime. It's not only novel, it's just not there. It's not Peter, it's not a federal crime, it's not a state crime. I think that the district attorney ought to be investigated by bar associations for bringing this case. So I don't think there's anything to this case. That doesn't mean there won't be a conviction. In New York City, in Manhattan, the jury might convict a ham sandwich if its name is Trump. So the fact that there is a conviction doesn't mean the case is any good.
Right. And then there could also be an appeal. We have a long ways to go. I want to point out we're looking live, as you can see right there on the screen. There's sort of a quad box up here of the YouTube streaming of Judge McAfee's courtroom. It's pretty wild to think a few months ago when we spoke, Professor Dershowitz, that this was set up because it was Trump's going to be on trial, a big RICO case. Fani Willis brings this sweeping indictment. They're going to have a YouTube stream. You know, they put Trump into Fulton County jail to take that mug shot there. And now it's amazing to see the 180 where it is her lover, the prosecutor she hired on the stand, Ashley Merchant there. Looks like she is questioning him. You know, she said at one point, you know, we started out as friends here. We got to also make a note here. This starts as small county stuff. So there's a lot of personal stuff happening here. How do you think the tone is and the tenor with what's happening in this courtroom right now?
Well, the judge is doing a very good job keeping control of the situation. He's generally making the right rulings, and let's see what the evidence uncovers. And let's see if the judge has to make a credibility determination. That will be difficult. If he has to decide who's telling the truth, that will be a hard decision. And that's why he's being given a lot of leeway to go to his credibility.
We have a little ways to go. We're going to listen back in. Professor Dershowitz, great to have you, sir, as always.